Story 1. The revenge was more of a moment of opportunity rather than planned, but I am enjoying it all the same. About 25 years ago, I bought a car and made the mistake of buying the extended warranty. The warranty was touted as a bumper to bumper warranty that included everything that might break. About 10 months into owning the car, it started exhibiting ignition system issues. I took it in, and it was the coil. They replaced it at no charge, and everything was fine. 3 months later, I had the same issue. I took the car back to the shop where I had purchased the car and told the manager what was happening. He said he'd check it out and asked me to sign a shop order just like last time. I get back to the shop a few hours later, and the manager says it was the coil again and that I owed $158 for the part and labor. I asked him about the extended bumper-to-bumper warranty, and his exact words were, "A coil is a standard maintenance part, and the car is over a year old." Now, I have owned several cars and have never had a coil go out on a single one of them. I asked him about the fact he had replaced that same part just a few months ago and was told it had a 30-day warranty and was no longer covered. I then asked to see the shop order I signed, and all I had agreed to was the $25 diagnostic fee. I told him to put the old part back in, and I wasn't paying anything except the diagnostic fee to which I had agreed. When I pulled out my credit card to pay, he demanded payment in cash. I was getting paid tomorrow and was poor back then, so I didn't even have $25 in cash at that moment. I called a friend, and he brought me the cash. I got in my car with the manager shouting insults at me. The car ran, but it ran really rough. I was able to get it to an auto parts store. I bought a coil and installed it in the parking lot of the store in less than 10 minutes. The aftermarket coil cost me $12, and it lasted until the car died after being driven for 7 years. I contacted the car manufacturer after that incident, and the coil should have been covered by my warranty. They asked me if I wanted to pursue getting my $25 back and to have a genuine part put in instead of my $12 aftermarket part. I told them no because the car was running fine. One of my clients is an auto dealership. Well, the shop manager moved on to bigger and better things, and a new shop manager was hired recently. It was the same guy who was the shop manager that tried to rip me off. I never remembered his name back then, but I know it now. We'll call him Lenny. Well, Lenny was all smiles and obviously didn't remember me from that incident many years ago. For several months, I worked on his systems in the shop, and everything has been going great. I did notice he tried to pull the same nonsense he pulled with me on customers, but I stopped that by going to the owner. I told the owner about my issue with him in the past, and that I noticed similar arguments when I was working on the systems in the shop office where the customers would pay. The owner said he'd watched the situation, and it seems to have stopped. A few months ago, Lenny asked me if I could take a look at his home computer as there were files he couldn't access anymore. I said sure and asked him to bring it to work. I picked his system up at work and took it home. When I turned on the system, it was obvious that he had gotten one of those ransomware viruses. I pulled the plug on the system and pulled the hard drive. I then called Lenny and asked if he had any backups. Amazingly, he did. I picked those up at the dealership and took them home. I told him what had happened and let him know that the best possible course of action would be to reload from scratch and restore from backup, to which he agreed. I also let him know that to get everything loaded and working the way it should would run close to $400. He also agreed to that. I had him sign a work order indicating the price and the labor to be done. I finished the reload and restore, and his computer is working flawlessly. I even installed free Home Edition security software, so he won't have that issue again. I took an invoice to the dealership, and it was a little over $450, tax and all. He took out a credit card to pay me, and I looked him right in the eye and said, "Cash only." Lenny looked a bit shocked and said, "I don't have that kind of cash at the moment, and why are you demanding cash only?" I looked him right in the eye and said, "Why did you demand cash only from a 20-something kid for a part that should have been covered under warranty?" He looked at me a bit longer and then recognized me. "You're the jerk with that car," I just smiled and said. "When you can pay me cash, you can have your computer." And then I walked away. It seems Lenny hasn't been too successful in life, as it has been several months, and I still have not received any payment for his system. I did send him a letter that he has another 90 days to pick up his system, or it will be sold or parted out to pay his outstanding balance. The last time I was in the shop, he asked me to please accept a credit card, and I told him to go get a cash advance. Story 2. I am a 53-year-old disabled veteran and use a variety of mobility aids to get around. I also get almost all my health care and medications from the local Veterans Affairs hospital. This last Monday, I realized that I was out of some medications and hadn't received the refills yet. So I ran to the hospital pharmacy to get enough to tide me over. Since my local hospital is absolutely huge, I always use my mobility scooter because there's absolutely no way I can physically navigate the parking lot and the labyrinth that the inside consists of. After I completed my transactions and checked in with a couple of my healthcare providers, I scooted myself out the doors with the intention of loading up my scooter in my vehicle and getting out of there. Now, with this being a Monday, everyone and their dog was trying to find parking to get into the building, so there were cars driving around looking for open spots to park. As I'm heading past vehicles, one pulls slightly in front of me to block my ability to continue moving forward. And this woman rolls down her window and yells at me for trying to cut in line. She was there first, and the guy in the car next to me was just staring at her with an absolute "what the heck" expression, about to get out of his vehicle to help me confront her. I shake my head and back my scooter up to go a different way to get to my vehicle. She passes me as I reach my truck and realizes that I'm loading up the scooter so I can leave. Well, she decides she's going to take my spot. Not today. I nod at the guy who wanted to help me, hop in my truck, and back out of the parking space in a way that blocks her and gives easy access to the other guy. I made sure to use all 5 fingers when I smiled and waved at her as I drove away. Story 3. This happened some time ago, about 4 or 5 years. My mom was once hit by a car next to my house while we were waiting for my cousin to finish talking with her followers. She's a pretty big influencer with about 40,000 followers in an Instagram direct message. As we started pulling out, there was no one in the street, but halfway out came this speeding car at 130 kilometers per h in a 60 kilometers per h area. When they saw my car pulling out, they hit the brake. It did stop a bit, yes, but it still collided with us and left a dent in our car. My mother had backed up when she saw the speeding, but she couldn't help not getting hit. A woman in her 40s, after the collision, comes out and starts berating my mother through her window. I still remember the alcohol smell as I was in the car, and she smelled like a bottle of Jägermeister herself. She started spurting out racist comments as my mother is from another place with a thick accent, though she's from the same country, while calling the police. Lo and behold, the cops come rolling, and this woman starts complaining to the police in a condescending tone towards us. And every time my mother wanted to explain her situation, she just started incoherently screaming so she couldn't be heard. It looked like a circus, and while my mother was talking to the police officer who looked like he was about to hit someone, I went up to talk to my cousin. I asked her if she had seen what happened, and she said yes, as she had seen it in her background while she was in the direct message, and she was commenting on it right now. She had it on the direct message, and I told her to save it just in case. Boy, did I hit it right? When the police officer finished with my mother, he just said to pay the woman's insurance. My mother was furious. She was the one speeding. The cop said that he hadn't seen what happened, and it looked like she had pulled out without watching for anyone. My mother started getting real upset and angry and started demanding to file an internal complaint, but he just walked away into his car and drove off. I approached my mom just as the woman was spitting on her out of spite, saying that it was an expensive car and that she didn't know who she was. Of course, she sued. Now, I wasn't at the court date as I was at school, but my mom told me what happened, so here it goes. My mother took a duty lawyer and went straight to court. She presented the direct message my cousin had done, which clearly showed the speeding and the collision. The woman had tried to sue for damages, claiming no insurance policy, which was untrue. She didn't even ask for it, and we do have it and emotional damage. She sued her for speeding, unruly use of law, damages for the car, racism, and emotional damage. We didn't once say she was drunk, as it wasn't clearly visible, and they'd just shrug it off. We got to defend ourselves. Her lawyer did well and almost got us. She said she had been speeding and that she didn't hit the brakes soon enough. But then she opened her mouth. What the heck did you expect me to do, huh? You can't ask a drunk person to do more than that. You're just being jerks because you don't have insurance, right? She sat back in her seat with a smug face. Her lawyer looked at her mortified, and the judge looked at her with wide eyes. My mother just smiled without believing it. So, let me put this straight. You were drunk? The judge asked her. Yes, I just got out from my husband's company meeting. You know what? I think I don't need to hear anything else. My mother won the lawsuit. This woman was a footballer's wife, and they had been at a party with the whole team. She was drunk and went home in one of their cars, then hit my mother's car. We won a significant amount of money, and she was sent on probation and some jail time because the drunken part just added public disturbance, public peril, and negligence. Here you go, some karma. This woman had it coming. Edit. I forgot to mention this, and I answered it in the comments. This cop was the woman's friend, and they pulled this on us, but we won because we had evidence. I can just wonder how many times this had happened, and what poor families were the other victims, because if this cop did this with us, then they could have done it with other people. Story 4. I am a 24-year-old woman who grew up very close to my mother, who is 53 years old. We were very close and did a lot of activities together. She got divorced when I was little and has since remarried a man I consider one of my role models in life, while still maintaining my connection with my biological father. Over the years, and since moving out of the house, I've noticed some very unsettling tendencies come out from the relationship I have with my mom. I met a man in college, and we started dating. Everyone was introduced, and things were great. This man is now my fiancé. As time went on and our relationship became more solidified and serious, my mom started preferring that just I come home to visit now. She complains about being a hostess and wanting to do whatever she wants to do without having to wait on everyone by making meals, cleaning up after us, etc. I get confused by this because, since this started coming up, we were in college and living independently. We don't need to be cared for. I do have a younger brother in the home that still needs that kind of support: food, water, shelter, but I've been out of that phase for years. She had a mental breakdown at my college graduation because she saw my biological father from a distance and refused to continue into the ceremony because it was all too much for her. My biological father and my stepfather both get along great. No one has any issues except for her. She makes comments on vacations when it's just us without my fiancé about how this might be the last vacation like this. This is how it could have been. And it makes me so upset. I love my fiancé very much and want him to be included, but she makes all these remarks about the opposite. It's pushing me away. A week before I got engaged, she asked me privately if I could not post anything when I do get engaged because the thought of me being engaged makes her physically ill. She asked if I could wait 2 years to get engaged because it would be more convenient for her since she would be done with her master's program by then. I told her none of that is in my control, and it is a once-in-a-lifetime moment that I would like everyone to share in, so I cannot make that promise to not share it online with everyone. She started crying and listed all the problems she had with family members, socializing, and big events. It was all about her. She refuses to get counseling and says, "God will get me through it." She clearly needs help and sees me as her confidant, but I can't help her when it involves putting my own life on hold. I tried to wait a little bit to tell her I got engaged when it happened, and I told her I had a date set. But as of right now, she's had problems with my bridesmaids I've picked out, the dates I have reserved, and doesn't even want me to try on any dresses with anyone, even if it's just for fun, because it's a mother's thing. I want to give my biological father some time during my wedding as well, walking down the aisle in a dance, but I know she will have a very strong opinion on that. At this point, I'm closer with my future mother-in-law and will have her support instead.